What's up, Diablo 4 players? So let's go over all of the major changes in Season 4 and kind of answer the question that I've been frequently getting: is Season 4 worth getting back into? And these are the biggest changes. So starting right off, this is the best and coolest thing in Diablo 4 for Season 4, and that is the brand new tempering system. So this is the big major change that allows you to add 2 more stats, essentially affixes, on an item. So what you're able to do is take an item that you get, and ideally you want to do this as soon as you can, because it basically hugely, massively changes the way that you play certain builds, because what it does allow you to do is a chance for something to activate twice or increase the size of something, or it has some sort of interesting interaction. This is the biggest change that I think a lot of people will be excited about. So what happens in the game is you're going to acquire an item and you will be able to what's called temper onto it. Now there is an RNG system with this, and you're going to get these tempering manuals, and you're going to acquire these tempering manuals by just simply playing the game, and once you read them you unlock it on your account, and you have the ability to temper on whatever thing that you want to craft on the item. Now, I mentioned that there is some RNG with this, so if I put this in over here, this is a item that is a offhand or a focus here. So what we're able to do is we're able to put certain recipes on the item. Certain ones like weapons, you're going to throw in weapons on offensive. If it's, let's say, a helmet, we would have defensive and utility. So certain ones are kind of locked to certain tempering recipes. And if you see over here, if I want to craft on it, it's going to be able to select a recipe, and it's going to hit 1 out of 5 of this one. It may hit 1 out of 3 on this one. It depends which one I want to grab. Now I'm able to add 2 of these. Now, without going super far in depth with this, because I do have a video guide, the whole video could be on tempering alone. This is the major change here. Now, all these stats technically existed before. Like, we already have stats that would give you in the game like maximum life or something like that, but you can essentially roll maximum life 2 times on an item, because you'd have it rolled naturally with the 3 little like diamonds. One of them I re-rolled, so it has a little like blue little like arrow thing that's cycling on it on maximum resource. But essentially those can roll with certain stats that then you can temper on to get double the amount of stats. So that is the major change. And one of the biggest changes with the tempering system is actually being able to get a lot of your abilities to cast twice, or you get to increase the size of it, and if it's a giant AoE, you're able to get a lot more value out of the skill. So that's one of the major and the biggest changes with the season in terms of your power. Now this is available for Eternal as well, so you don't have to play in the seasons if you don't want to, but this is like the major big change over here. So on top of that, we are able to actually get new Helltides. So these new Helltides over here, what's really cool is, oh, this one's going to end in 4 minutes, so let's go ahead and be a little bit faster. The Helltide is actually one of the best things in this season, and that's because it is going to add a lot more difficulty to the game, not only because the monsters are going to be a little bit more dangerous here, but the monsters in this area will also give you some newer rewards. And in fact, let's go pop some of the newer things. So one of the newer things that we can pop is this brain. It's going to increase the levels by 10 and increase our rewards. And then we also have this like new elixir of holy bolts here, and I'll pop that. And you'll see when I kill stuff, it will also shoot out these holy bolts. The Helltide is way more exciting now. You're going to be getting so much loot. It is amazing. It's one of the best changes here. And you'll see that we have this little threat meter. Hopefully we can build it up. It's right under the cinders. And you'll also see that there is something called the Blood Maiden. The Blood Maiden is a brand new boss, and I'll link a video that kind of shows it off, because the fight will kind of last a long time depending on your build, but I'm sure there'll be builds that will one-shot it. And I want to try to have this video cover everything, but basically you've built up the threat meter, and then there will be some enemies that come out, and well, you fight the enemies and you get some rewards. Let's go ahead and grab this little goblin over here. But if you can tell, the Helltide is actually going to be a lot more dangerous now. And also, rare items are completely useless in the game, in terms of the end game. And the reason why is legendary items roll with 3 stats, where the rare items only roll with 2. So do not temper or modify your rare items, as they are basically worthless in the game. Yeah, it's just, you'd have 1 less stat. So you can see our build's pretty good right now, but we haven't fully min-maxed, but by the time this video is actually uploaded, I'm probably already maxed out in terms of levels, but there's a lot more that goes into this game now with the new Masterworking. So before, when you would get like 5 out of 5, let's go ahead and go back because I kind of wanted to briefly show this off. But once you build up the meter, more monsters spawn in. There's actually a newer monster that can, like, it's like a worm that kind of jumps out of the ground and starts spitting out monsters. It's pretty cool looking. But for the most part, the Helltide is essentially buffed. The density, as you guys saw, is a little bit more buffed as well. Like, there's a lot more monsters. And it actually gets quite dangerous, especially in the earlier stages of the game. But once your build is relatively more powerful, it'll be good. And then on top of that, I wanted to go over some of the good and the bad. So this is another really cool thing where we get to masterwork the item. You can see this item over here. If I was to put this in, we can masterwork it. I don't have any more materials. But to sum it up, how it works is instead of going to like 5 out of 5, you go 1 through 12 now. And it's going to increase the stats by 5% every single time. But at 4, 8, and 12, you get to randomly hit one of the stats that's on the item, except for the unique power. And then you will be able to get a 25% bonus to it. So basically, that cooldown reduction is rolled with what's called a greater affix. So it will roll perfect plus 50% more of this stat. So normally you can't get 10% cooldown reduction on a ring. Let me actually go ahead and show off what like a perfect cooldown reduction on a ring would look like, because I have one over here. It's let me find one of the X-Falls. X-Fall. Okay, so if we go to this X-Falls, you can see I can roll 7% cooldown reduction, but this rolled to get 10 point something, and I masterworked it, so it has 5% more. But at some point, we could hit that greater affix, and it could go even further. We can maybe get like 20% cooldown reduction on one item, which again is something that you wouldn't normally be able to do. Now, that is luck and it's RNG, but that is the brand new masterworking system, and if you don't like the masterworking system, in terms of what you got, you can re-roll it by hitting this little button to reset the ranks of it. You will have to re-farm up the material, but that new material is farmed up via this newer area called the pit. Now, I have a dedicated video that goes over it. I'll link it down below, as well as this video is very important for anyone that's actually interested in master crafting. This video, it's like 20 minutes long, but I promise you it is super, super, super important to watch this video if you want to actually play this game efficiently, because tempering absolutely can brick your item, and you don't want to mess up your item, especially if it's a greater affix, because that's a GG item. And speaking of getting GG items, one of the best things in the season is actually that we can just straight up trade our uniques. Now, we can't trade uber uniques, but it's so helpful because I had an extra Talra Rasha's Iridescent Loop. This is one of the best rings in the game, and when I would have like an extra copy of something super good and I already had one, well, I just had to delete it and it kind of felt bad. But now I can trade it and get other things. I hooked up someone with this ring. They hooked me up with a Fractured Winter Glass. Now, it's a bottom rolled one, but that's okay because sometimes you got to use stuff as stepping stones, and if I happen to get a better one, I can give this to someone else. And I think that that is excellent. Granted, if you start tempering and modifying the item, they actually make it so you can't trade it, which I honestly think it'd be better if we could always trade items. This way, people aren't scared to, you know, modify the item because they can, you know, still trade it at the end of the day. So, trade is here, and there's a bunch of newer uniques for every single class. Some, I'm going to be honest, they're not as good as others, but at the end of the day, there are newer builds, like Frozen Orb is finally good, which is one of my favorite things, and the build is already uploaded for this one. But I really like this change over here with specifically swapping kind of the skills up every single season. But on top of that, there are tons of free aspects that you can acquire if you go to one of the NPCs. It's somewhere around over here, but there's an NPC that you can talk to, and you get a bunch of new rewards for the season. Let me see if I can go ahead and actually show you guys this over here. So right in this location, there is a new area called the Iron Wolves Encampment. This is part of the season journey, and if you're wondering, as far as the season goes, like, you know, how's the season, like, journey, and what's the season power? This is a very frequently asked question. Well, surprisingly, there is no seasonal power. Now, there is enough content, though, because when some people hear that, like, oh, why would I even want to play seasons if there's no, like, power? Well, you get to kind of interact with other people, and everyone's kind of playing the seasons. And you do get a bunch of these free rewards. Eventually, you're just going to get straight up a bunch of free legendaries, a bunch of free uniques, and you're going to be getting a spark. If you guys have ever played the game, farming Duriels for, like, 10 plus hours is not what I consider the most fun. But you get guaranteed resplendent sparks by playing in the new season. You get a guaranteed one over here, and you're going to get a bunch of uniques completely for free. So the rewards this season are like 1,000 times better. And as a Diablo partner, I remember talking specifically to them about this. I'm like, guys, these rewards for like the Midwinter Blight and stuff of getting like 20,000 gold, there's a huge disconnect from like your players' like time invested and this joke of a reward. Like it is needing to have a massive rework. And I want to say they absolutely delivered. You get so much material from the season journey, and then they give you part of an uber unique because the spark is part of it. So I think this is a fantastic addition to the game over here. And there's a bunch of nice quality of life things like bonus glyph XP if you go and use the season. I'm actually maxed out over here. So you get a bunch of season blessings. You can see you get just more XP, you get Paragon glyph. So they not only boosted up the XP that you get with the glyphs, but then they boosted it again because you have it on the brand new season blessings over here. And then that was quite nice. The XP that you get in general, the brand new codex changes where you can just salvage any of the items that you don't want over here, and you can just go to the occultists. And this is another nice change. They have actually put in NPCs almost everywhere that you would want to be, so you're not walking from here and then having to travel like a huge distance to go all the way to the occultist. Remember how you would go over here and let's say you wanted to salvage items, and this is a really massive change. This is one of the best changes here. So normally you go salvage, repair, or whatever, and then you'd be like, okay, I want to go to the occultist and I gotta go way over here, right? Well, no longer do you need to do this. You just go right over here. You have the jeweler right here, which used to be over here. Now, sometimes in some areas they've doubled up the NPCs, but this is such a nice change. We have the stash right here. We have the jeweler. Now, one thing that basically got deleted out of the game, and I'm going to get into some of the pros and the cons, or the good and the bad. Buying items is useless in the game. There is no point for this even to exist because rare items are useless. So you can never visit the NPCs. That's like a deleted mechanic. It's almost like blue items, white items in the previous seasons, they were worthless, right? Well, in this season, even rare items are absolutely worthless. There's another change with like obols too, where like you can hold more obols, and the obols, you can get 925s consistently out of these. But the occultist is just right here. So like you guys can see, everything is kind of like compacted into a lot of the major cities. Everything is like there instantly. I showed you guys some of the new, I showed you one of the new elixirs. There's like a couple of newer elixirs here, but the brain is essentially one of the main new things for the season here. And this is a profane mind cage. Again, this is just going to increase the level, so more XP, and then increases the drop rate. And on top of that, you're going to be able to increase the cinders that actually drop. So that's kind of nice. So other things that I'm going to consider in like I wish things would change over here. I wish there was more leaderboards for like, let's say the pit and stuff. There are some items that are super scarce. So like, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but the gold this season is actually a lot more valuable. You kind of run out of gold. So don't sit there re-rolling, especially if it's not a GG God tier item. Save your gold, go to trade websites, trade your items for gold. I have like a stash over here where like a lot of these items that are like greater affix, maybe like 1 or 2 greater affix, I'm saving or I'm trading for other items. And that's kind of good because it encourages you to trade. I wish they had an in-game trade system, like an auction house or some way to trade in-game, even if it was just a trade channel, because people do sometimes spam some sort of trades in games, but like, it's outdated. We need like a little like auction house. That would be really nice, but hopefully that can come later in the game. I really wish there was more endgame. There is the pit, and again, I'll link some of these down below because otherwise it's like a video that could have been dedicated towards the pit. But basically, to sum it up, the pit will give you these newer materials, and you use that to masterwork your items. As you go up in tier, it requires different ones. But for the most part, it's kind of the same. Like, you don't really need to do anything special. The pit is basically a greater rift. Again, if you want to see the gameplay and a more in-depth explanation of that, you just go and you fight the boss, and then it just drops the stuff. It's exactly like a greater rift in Diablo 3. But to access it, you require what's called rune shards, and it tells you exactly what you need. Most often found in Whisper Caches, Helltide Legion chests, Nightmare Dungeon, and World Bosses. I like this game for being able to tell you exactly what you need to do without really needing to go anywhere. Like, nowadays, with the potion being upgraded, it tells you there's an up arrow, you can go upgrade your potion, which is kind of nice. A lot of just small quality of life things. That is definitely something very good in the game. Also, I wanted to mention that it is pretty important this season to absolutely do the world bosses, because if you don't, you're going to run out of what's called scatter prisms. You know how before you could just straight up just keep on socketing things and you'd have like 50 of these really earlier on? I've only had 6. I've only socketed 1 thing so far in the game, and that's because I'm waiting for my stuff to be godly. What you want to try to get in the game is get what's called a greater affix, and then you want to temper onto it. Like, for example, these rolled with plus 27% movement speed. That's way higher than you can get. And what we're going to do is we are going to temper the movement speed on it. You can see it didn't hit the perfect roll on the tempered. That's the little anvil one. So that is something we added onto it. But this is like a godly pair of boots. Ideally, you'd have triple greater affix, and I think I got one the other day. I don't know where it's at the moment, but I did have a triple greater affix item, and that could be quite exciting to see an item get triple greater affix. Let me see if I can find it. Well, here's like a double one over here. You can see it's indicated by the little star, and some of these are very, very worthy in terms of price point if you happen to have a triple good greater affix. Ideally on boots you want greater affix movement speed, maybe dodge, maybe ranks to a certain skill. All those things can kind of add up, and then you can have a godly, super godly item. So I really like that. I'm just checking out my other notes over here. But as far as other bonus tips, one of the other bonus tips I want to give you guys, if you guys get any of these temper manuals, use them immediately. Otherwise, you get 10 of the same ones. You can see these are all the same ones, and it's because I didn't consume them immediately. I was saving them. You can't trade them, by the way. I was saving to kind of test out what would happen if you got multiples of the same one, and it doesn't give you another one. It's just basically trash at that point. But that was a little bonus tip there. But for the most part, this game is so much better. And if you're wondering, is it worth coming back into the game? Absolutely. If you're a fan of Diablo in general and you like the game, then this is going to be an excellent season. But if you don't like the core gaming experience of killing monsters and stuff, it's not going to be changing the game up completely. But it does massively rework the itemization and how you are going to be getting gear and kind of upgrading it as a journey. And I think it's quite great. There is kind of some sort of criticism that I want to add to this. This does make a lot of the unique items a lot less viable, but I think that is okay. It makes it so uniques aren't best in slot because the unique items cannot be tempered. You can masterwork them and they can roll with greater affixes, but it just makes it so a lot of them kind of feel useless, specifically on OG items. I'm a huge Diablo fan in general, so I played all the Diablo games, and things like Wind Force are super OG and awesome that they added them in every single Diablo game, but they're just objectively bad. But that is because tempering has a chance for your basically your skill that you're dealing damage with to activate twice, and that is a huge source of damage. Think of it kind of like Path of Exile for a chance for double damage. If I shoot Frozen Orb, I have a chance for it to cast again, and that is big because this tempering thing can be masterworked, and you can get an even higher chance for that specific skill to cast twice. And that does not cost any resource, by the way. That is a huge bonus here because normally in games like PoE, if you have a, cast on crit or any sort of cast when damage taken, it would still cost you resource, but it does it in Diablo 4. So what that allows you to do is all your lucky hit, all your activation chances, you just get extra everything. The game overall feels way better, and I could highly recommend it this season, but there are some flaws with it. Like I said, the gold system, I actually don't mind it, and I know a lot of people have been complaining about it. I noticed that the gold is kind of drained here quite fast unless you do whispers again and again. Also gems, for constructive criticism, I still can't even craft a royal gem. That's crazy. Normally I'd be able to go ahead and max out, and it's not really that big of a deal. I'll play and I'll eventually get everything maxed out, and yes, it takes a long time, but at the end of the day, once you unlock a gem, you can just unsocket the gem, right? I can unsocket it and then put it in something else. It's not that big of a deal. And I mean, look at the cost of this. Oh, also, masterworking cost is crazy. Gold now has value, and I think that that's actually it's good for the people that trade, because that means that I can trade and sell my items for gold, and people will actually need gold, so they'll sell items for a little bit cheaper perhaps. Now there is another thing: you cannot trade the uber uniques, but you can trade uniques. So trading is massively buffed. I mean, overall, this is one of the best seasons in Diablo that I think we've ever gotten. So those are the major changes and the things that I wanted to go ahead and mention with this video. But I'm curious to know if you guys have played it. Let me know your thoughts down below. But it is absolutely worth coming back into the season. It is a blast to play. And I feel right now, as far as the leveling progress, I'm pretty much almost all the way done over here. Look at, we're already in what, day 2 or 3 here at this point. And I've completely maxed out all my season blessings. It's a lot faster for the experience. So making other characters is definitely something I'll be interested in doing. But that's going to go wrap up stuff for the video. If you guys enjoyed it and you learned something new here, drop a like. And if you want to subscribe for even more content in the future, go ahead and do so. And I'll see you guys in the next video. And let me know what is your favorite change and what is some of the things that you don't like about this game, because I want to give Blizzard feedback for their mid-season update. I'm going to mention like the gold and the gems. I feel like that is like a no-brainer. I think that should be increased just a little bit, but other than that, it's an awesome season. You'll have a blast. Peace out, guys.